Hello and welcome to today's taster session. I'm Dr. Tony Sampson. I'm the course leader of the MA Media and Communication Industries in the School of Arts and Creative Industries at the University of East London. I'm very proud to introduce today one of our most excellent overseas students, Margretha Kampulu, who successfully completed her MA with us with a distinction this year. Margretha will be talking about her findings of an excellent research project she carried out in her final term, which responds to the brief to produce a deep analysis of trends in a specified media industry. So Margretha's work focuses on the challenges of understanding, really, the impacts of AI technologies on journalism in this specific case. Her work is very detailed, informative, and quite profound, and offers some wonderful surprises. And that's the reason why it was this piece of work of distinction. And it engages with a number of themes actually, which are key to kind of UEL's vision in terms of its career-focused ambitions, as particularly with regard to the notion of the fourth industrial revolution, which this piece of work massively engages with. I hope you enjoy it. Welcome. Thank you very much, Margretha, for agreeing to do this.
Thank you, Tony.
Over to you.
Thank you, Tony. Hi, everyone. As stated, my name is Margretha Kampulu, and welcome to this taster session as well. So today I will be discussing automation in the media and communication industries. So just a brief overview of what we'll discuss today. I'll give you a brief introduction about myself. We'll discuss media versus automation, the types of usage of automation in media industries, the impacts thereof, the opportunities that can arise from there, and then we can have a bit of a discussion. So, just a brief background about myself. I'm a communications professional, and my background is really in social sciences and international development. I work for an international organizations doing communications for development, as well as other smaller responsibilities such as project management and managing smaller portfolios like youth development in Namibia. I have quite a number of interests, and some of them include sustainability, climate and environmental activism, youth development, technology, and innovation. And for today's session, I'm mainly focusing on my interests of technology and innovation. So, what exactly is media and automation? So, as Tony stated, this presentation is largely based on my dissertation, my research that I've carried out during my MA at the University of East London. And this dissertation mainly focused on the usage and the challenges of using automation and artificial intelligence in media and communication industries. So, the clear definition of this is the utilization of robot journalists, which are also known as automated or algorithmic journalists. And this is actually a widespread practice in media and communication industries. So, Graff in 2016 defined it as the process of using software or algorithms to automatically generate news stories without human intervention after the initial programming of the algorithm, of course. So this assumes that there is some sort of intervention by humans and does not necessarily mean that robots can do everything on their own, which we will discuss a bit later on in the presentation as well. And as I stated, all of this is enabled and it's powered by artificial intelligence, machine learning, technology advancement, as well as the growing demands from media and communication industries. So, just to give an example of the COVID-19 pandemic, for example, as media consumers, we were demanding a lot of factual and correct information from the media, and the demand was really higher than what the media could produce. And by media here, I just mean that human journalists themselves. So, of course, media houses and companies had to come up with other ways on how they could provide us with this information that we're constantly seeking for, and this is where automated journalists came in. So, the kinds of companies and institutions that use automated journalists and all of these softwares and technologies are really small and large. We have a lot of them, such as BBC, Forbes, The Guardian, and even the ones that we use on a daily basis like Facebook, Apple, Google, Amazon, and Microsoft. So, of course, they use the different kinds of artificial intelligence systems, but the fact is that they do use them to sort of help them in their operations. So, any sort of media and communication technology and other industries, of course, use artificial intelligence and robot journalists to help them in their operations. So, what exactly are the contemporary usages of AI in media? So, from my research, I found out that there are various uses, and these uses are dependent on the need of the newsroom as well as the resources that are available. So, as I stated, there are different kinds of artificial intelligence software and these robot journalists, as they are called, but then they do different work and at different levels to produce a different kind of output. So they don't all use or do the same thing. And this will depend on the need of the newsroom. If, for example, a newsroom needs a software or they have a growing need for dissecting large data sets, they will have a software that can specifically look at that. However, another different kind of newsroom would need a different kind of software to, let's say, identify doctored images or videos that have been doctored or played with. So then there's a different kind of need there. And there are different tasks that these artificial intelligent robots can do. So, just some of the examples of what they can do can include data analysis, data aggregation, filtering and abstraction, identifying doctored images and videos, as I've mentioned, tagging metadata on different kind of media such as photos and videos, identifying trends and themes in given data sets. And this was stated by Wu et al. In 2019. So one of the major benefits that was stated or that came out of this my dissertation is that there is a benefit um, for the media industries as a whole, and that benefit is that artificial intelligent robots and automated journalists would free up human journalists so that they can focus on more challenging work, such as investigative work. Um, this is mainly because artificial intelligence robots and robot systems are not really the best at doing investigative work or doing work that has to do with humans. Instead, they are really, really good at doing work that have to do with numbers and data sets. As a result, they have a lot of strength in writing and contributing to stories that have to do with sports, weather, finances, business, and even stories such as COVID-19, because there's a lot of data that is involved there. So, this is just an example of the AI and data training process. So, of course, this whole dissertation is based on two um, disciplines. I was, of course, mainly focusing on the media and communication aspects of it, but the whole artificial intelligence part of it comes from computer sciences and that whole discipline. So, the simple way that I can describe this is that first, before your artificial intelligent robot system can produce an article for you or can do a specific task for you, they need to be trained on how to work with the data. So you need to have existing data sets, and then you train the machine to do what you want it, to produce. You have a model on which it will, learn what you want it to do. Let's say, for example, you want it to learn the difference in what an original image looks like versus a doctored image of something, so that it's able to identify that at a later stage. So once it's able to learn that and there's a model in place for that, you can then input the data, a different data set, so that it can, so that you can test this artificial intelligence system, so that you can see if it's really knowing what you have taught it to do. And then it goes through a whole machine learning algorithm, and then it will predict something. Let's say this doctored image, it will predict if it's really what you wanted it to do, and then it will send it back to you to evaluate if it has done a good job or not. If it has done a good job, your artificial intelligence system is ready to do more work in that regard. If it didn't do a good job, it has to go back to the training stage so that it's able to learn more about this output that you want it to do. Of course, this is a simplified version of it. However, it's a bit more complicated when you look at it from a computer science perspective. But from a media and communication perspective, this is the simple of it. You want it to really be able to do something so that it can free you, in a sense. So, some of the impacts that I have picked up in my dissertation, the impacts of AI in media and communication industries. One of the biggest impact is the labor issue. There have been a loss of jobs by human journalists. For example, Facebook did fire a team of human journalists or human media practitioners who were responsible for working with trending news. So these human journalists were responsible for identifying what is trending in the world and then sort of suggesting that to the Facebook users. So Facebook fired that team and they replaced that team with a robot artificial intelligence system to do it. And this is an impact because people are losing their jobs. People have to look for other kinds of jobs and they have to sort of get new skills to do different kinds of jobs because they're being replaced. However, on the plus side, there is a creation of other types of jobs as a result of the loss of these jobs. So, for example, there is a creation of jobs in the software generation industry or artificial intelligence system generation industry. Um, a quote by Cohen in 2015 says, "This degrades the work of writing, editing, and devalue media labor, not to mention undermine creativity, experimentation, and the ability for journalists to pursue critical, investigative journalism in the public interest." Of course, this is related to the labor issue because people are being replaced by artificial intelligence systems. And this is mostly on news production issues because people have to write articles and people have to edit articles. But if artificial intelligence systems can do that, then Cohen argues that it devalues the media labor and it undermines creativity, which is true to a certain extent, but we can discuss this a bit further. However, I also discovered that there are other implications that are from an ethical standpoint, such as bias, quality and credibility, and authorship issues. I'm going to touch on the authorship issue, for example. One of the things that I've discovered during my dissertation is that newsrooms do not really have a clear policy, or they do not really know how to credit who has written an article. For example, you can have an article that was written by an automated journalist, but then it was sent to a human editor to fact check and all that before it's sent off to the consumer. However, when this newsroom reports or credits this article, it will simply state the name of the newspaper or the news organization. Let's say, for example, it will just say it's written by the BBC, and that's it. This creates trust issues between the consumers of the media and the newsroom itself because people don't necessarily know who has written um, this article. And this is sort of a key consideration in media and communication industries. The creditor, you have to be able to credit who has written this article so that we're able to identify with that person, or we're able to get in touch with that journalist to say, oh, I didn't understand this part, can you explain it, or can you give me the source or something like that. But if you only have the newspaper or the newsroom as the author all the time, it undermines really the whole authorship, which is a key consideration in media industries. We have here a quote by Volcker and Powell in 2021, and it says, "Algorithms are also inadequate to fulfill the watchdog function, which assigns journalists the task to oversee the functioning of governments and society." And this is particularly true because the watchdog function is quite important in any society. And if we have articles who are authored or to a certain extent contributed to by artificial intelligence systems, and this is not disclosed to us as media consumers, the media organizations are not necessarily in a position to fulfill this function, which creates a lot of issues between the public as generally the public, and also as the media consumers, because we don't have trust in the newspapers anymore. So there's a lot to unpack here, and I think we can discuss it during the discussion section as well. So, what are the opportunities that can arise from this whole, artificial intelligence and media nexus? So, one of the things that I've mentioned is that robot journalists have limitations. They lack human skills such as analytical skills, creativity, judgment, clarity, and so forth. And this was stated by Beckett in 2019. So this is where you, as media and communication students, can come in and really fill this gap, because there is a gap here. Because although artificial intelligence systems are developing at a fast rate, they still lack these human skills. And you, as media and communication industry students, do have these skills. You can hone these skills and you can improve them so that you can fill this gap. There is also a huge opportunity to shape how you want to see the media and communication industries through research and design. So you can research the trends and you can contribute to shaping this industry so that you can, fit in completely, because media and communication industries are not as we used to know them. They are constantly shaping and evolving, and you have to keep up with them. You also have to rethink your skills and keep up with your skills, because they are constantly moving, as I've just stated. So, for example, back in the day, one of the key skills that you needed to have is, just writing. But now, one of the key skills that people might need to know is, analytical skills. You need to probably know how to work with software, how to make software do what you want it to do. So these are some of the skills that still need to um, that you can still, upgrade and improve so that you can fit into the media and communication industries. So some of the AI journalism projects that I've discussed heavily in my dissertation are Thomson Reuters AI journalism project. I've put a link here. There's also a project by the London School of Economic and Political Sciences, and Google is a journalism project as well. So you can also check that out. And then I think, Tony, I'm done here. We can have a discussion on what I've just stated with everyone else. Thank you.
Hello. Okay. I was just backstage for a very short while there. I hope you can all hear me now. Thank you very much, Margretha. That's wonderful to hear about your project again. As I said, it was a really successful project. Just for me, captured everything that we kind of want from students who join this course for the year in London, in East London. Because you've grasped, something that's interesting about the industry itself, a trend that's occurring, and it's this perfect sort of ground for research. I think, industrial focused research in this case. I just wanted to, just expand a little bit on what you've already said, because one of the other innovative things you did, which really fascinated me, you kind of borrowed a method from computer science, actually. Although we're a media course, obviously we're highly interested in the kind of the digital environment. And you borrowed the rather famous Turing Test, which for those of you who maybe don't know what that is, that was kind of almost the inventor of computer science, Alan Turing, who was also very interested in the very early days, and we talk about the 1930s here, in the potential for AI, artificial intelligence. And so Turing invented this test. I just wondered whether, Margretha, you just could expand a little bit and say how you use that as a methodology for your dissertation.
Yeah, sure. So for my methodology, one of the things that I was really testing is whether media consumers generally, the general public, are able to distinguish between articles that were written by artificial intelligence systems, robot journalists, and articles that were written by a human journalist. So the methodology was a Turing test whereby I specifically gave two different kinds of articles on the same or similar topic. So, for example, articles on COVID-19 or articles on a sport match. And I would conceal the name of the author. However, some of the results were really surprising because people could not really, distinguish between who the author was because it was really similar in writing. And of course, in my conclusion, I did mention that it could be that artificial intelligence systems are really good at mimicking human journalists, or it could just be that we are trying to mimic artificial intelligence at this point. So it's a really interesting test because it really shows just where we are as an industry. There's still a lot of work to be done, but it really proves that artificial intelligence has come a long way and that robot journalists are able to really do something with the work that they can do.
Yeah, excellent. I also thought that some of the ambiguities that the research produced, the methodology produced, actually led to a really interesting discussion, because there seemed to me to be this kind of split between, on the one hand, AI being able to do jobs around data, around sort of numeric information, whereas humans creating more kind of human angles to things, the stories. But actually, it wasn't just the case, was it? There's quite a lot of as I said, ambiguity in the responses to that. So that was absolutely fascinating. And I like your comment about the kind of dual imitation of technology and humans imitating each other, which of course is central to kind of Turing's point. Another profound thing I think you bring in, and there are a lot of fears about the kind of loss of jobs through AI, and and also a lot of stuff you read about AI is a kind of about the future. But let's just say, firstly, AI is well and truly with us. I mean, this is something you exposed in your research, that this is already here. This is being used. It's not the future anymore. It's a reality. And you very clearly in your findings there, told us a little bit about the kind of the issues around the loss of jobs. I mean, there are jobs going to be lost. There already are jobs. You mentioned Facebook there. But to some extent, I suppose you might say that that's overstated, because there are new opportunities. I just wonder if I could just press you a little bit more on, where you think those new jobs will be. Let's start. The first thing, maybe, what kind of jobs will be lost? And then maybe what kind of jobs will be located? I know you've already said that, but maybe just to restate it.
Yeah. So the kinds of jobs that will be lost are kinds of jobs that are sort of regarded as redundant at this point, or jobs that are sort of repetitive. So jobs such as looking at data, but as a human journalist, looking at data, aggregating data, um, putting data in categories and stuff like that. Because now we have robot journalists or artificial intelligence systems who can do that. Those are the kinds of jobs that are really at risk of being lost. Also jobs that are sort of junior in a way that can be easily replaced, or jobs that are considered old in terms of skill set, like let's just say writing about sports can easily be replaced because it's a lot of data heavy kind of writing. But at the same time, there's also opportunities in that loss that we can discuss.
Yeah, okay. I think there's a lot of scope. I did mention about going on and doing some sort of PhD level study here from the masters. But this whole idea of what constitutes the kind of creative labour, which will emerge as a result, perhaps, of a lot of a kind of factual data, numeric data, that kind of thing being captured by machines. So where is the room for humans in there to kind of develop above that kind of level, which I think was absolutely fascinating, and your work kind of hints at that brilliantly. The last point I'd like to discuss, and it's another really interesting point that you draw out, is kind of about accountability. A lot of concerns from a lot of experts in this area is that as with most technological innovations, they're kind of progressing a lot faster than any kind of regulation is progressing. So, AI is doing things already in the background. I mean, search engines, social media, Amazon are all running some kind of AI systems. Some of them fairly crude, basic things. Some of them getting more and more sophisticated. But of course, this links to the idea about how are these systems accountable to their users? How are they accountable? So, I'd like you just to maybe expand a little bit more on that as a final point about, this issue of accountability, how serious you think it is, the kind of implications for it, and then perhaps, some sense about how can regulation catch up with these, with these systems, if indeed they can,
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree that it is a serious issue. Accountability is a serious issue in media and communication industries. What we do need to remember is that these artificial intelligence systems and robot journalists are created by humans. It's not like they just exist. So they are created by humans who should be accountable to someone or some organization of some sort. At the same time, they are also created to mimic the work of human journalists or humans in general. So one of the issues or one of the considerations that I did give in my dissertation is a suggestion for a comprehensive crediting policy in media industries for when artificial intelligence systems or robot journalists are involved. And this is also something that was suggested by another study previously done. However, this is something that is not adopted in media and communication industries at all, or newsrooms for that matter. Of course, some newsrooms do have a crediting policy. So let's say, for example, if a robot journalist only did the data work, such as aggregating it or looking at data and data sets and so forth, and a human journalist did the rest of the work, some of the newspapers have a policy in place for that so that they can just credit it as the human's work. However, some newspapers and news organizations don't have any policy in place at all, and they would at some stages they would credit the software developer, or they would credit the software developing company, or they would just credit the newspaper as the author of that piece, which is very inconsistent across the entire media and communication industries. So it's something that is really, really serious and needs to be addressed. Um, I know it's not a simple thing to address, really, but it's something that has to be done because it's very inconsistent at the moment. I think you're on mute, Tony.
Thank you. I'm still getting used to some of these systems, but yeah, thank you very much. I mean, it's absolutely fantastic to see you again, Margretha. And we're continually keen on to invite our students back to contribute as they move on to new ventures. I mean, it'd just be interesting, maybe you did mention a little bit about what you're doing now, but can you just expand a little bit more, just as a final thing, just to say where you are now and what you're doing?
Yeah, so I'm currently in Namibia. I'm just finishing off my work leave. I'm actually taking up a new job, or rather a promotion. I'm still working for the United Nations, but I'm moving to New York next month to start up my new job there. So I'm currently just in Namibia finishing up my leave and as well as starting my visa processing so I can go start my new job in New York.
Wow, that's so exciting! How fantastic. Well, maybe I've been to New York a few times, so maybe I'll bump into you when I'm over there next. Hopefully,
Indeed.
when the
Thank you.
travel restrictions are less. Fantastic. So no, again, I must say thank you very much. It's great to see a student who took the kind of the challenge of the master's degree we offer and turned it into such a brilliant piece of work. And I'm really glad that you could share it with us. And as a kind of model, a beacon of success for this particular program. Okay,
Thank you so much, Tony.
very good to see you. Yeah, okay.